Where Hope Lives. For Daniel Carter, 28 years old, life revolved around his night shifts as a paramedic in Chicago. Since he was a child, he knew he wanted to help people, inspired by his father, a firefighter who died saving lives. But after a tragedy during an emergency call, Daniel began to doubt his ability to make a difference. The incident, which involved a severe accident on a bridge, left deep marks on his soul. Daniel managed to save a child, but lost 2 other passengers who did not survive their injuries. He blamed himself, reliving the scene in his mind every night. Despite his dedication, his confidence was shaken and he pulled away from his friends and family. In the same city, Maya Torres, 24 years old, struggled to maintain the community shelter that her mother had founded on the south side of town. The shelter was a refuge for homeless families, but it was on the brink of closing due to lack of funding and volunteers. For Maya, losing the shelter would mean losing her mother's legacy, who always believed that hope could transform lives. Daniel and Maya's paths crossed when he responded to an emergency at the community shelter. A kitchen fire left several people scared, but thankfully no one was seriously injured. During the chaos, Daniel was impressed by Maya's calm as she comforted a crying child and organized the evacuation. The connection between them was instant, yet subtle, a look of recognition that they both carried heavy burdens. At that moment, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a spark of purpose. Without fully understanding why, he returned to the shelter the next day, offering to volunteer on his days off. Though hesitant, Maya accepted. Daniel's arrival brought a ray of hope to her and the people at the shelter. However, both their pasts continued to haunt them, threatening to destroy their chance to find a new reason to believe. In the days that followed, Daniel became a regular presence at the community shelter. He helped with food distribution, fixed small structural problems, and even organized activities for the children. However, as he got more involved, he began to realize how much Maya carried the weight of everything on her own. "You need more help," he said one day while fixing a broken window. "You can't do it all alone." "I have no choice," Maya replied, sighing. "If I give up, who else will keep going? These people depend on me." Despite Maya's determination, the shelter's problems seemed to be piling up. Donations were decreasing, and the bank had sent a notice about overdue payments for the building. Maya tried not to show her concern, but Daniel noticed her growing exhaustion. Meanwhile, Daniel was also facing his own ghosts. Every time he saw children playing at the shelter, he was reminded of the night of the accident on the bridge. The image of the child he saved, combined with the faces of those he couldn't help, haunted him. During a conversation with Maya, he finally opened up. "I try to do something good here, but it feels like it's never enough. Sometimes saving one person doesn't seem to make up for all the others I lost." Maya responded kindly, "You don't have to carry this alone. Saving one person matters. For that person you were everything." Maybe that's what you need to see. As they both struggled with their own internal conflicts, the shelter was hit with a new blow. A fire department inspection determined that the building needed urgent repairs to continue operating. Without enough money or support, Maya felt the weight of imminent failure. It was then that Daniel had an idea. He suggested organizing a fundraising event to draw the community's attention. Despite Maya's initial skepticism, she agreed, and the two began working together on the plan. However, obstacles emerged. A negative campaign on social media accused the shelter of being poorly run. Maya was devastated to see her reputation and her mother's memory tarnished. Daniel, in turn, confronted his guilt as he saw his dedication questioned once again. Despite this, the two joined forces, facing the criticism with resilience. Daniel used his connections at the hospital and with other paramedics to rally support. Maya, determined to protect her mother's legacy, convinced former volunteers to return. Together, they began to transform the event into a symbol of resistance. The fundraising event finally happened. The neighborhood community hall was full of simple decorations, live music, and several tables with items donated for auction. Daniel and Maya were anxious but also exhausted from all the work. It was the last chance to save the shelter. At the beginning of the night, things seemed promising. Donations started to come in, and the atmosphere was filled with positive energy. People from the community who were once just distant faces were now united in support of the shelter. But in the midst of the excitement, a man in a gray suit entered the hall. He was Thomas Green, a representative from the bank that had sent the collection notices to Maya. He wasn't there to donate, but to remind her that the deadline for the property payment was the next morning. Maya turned pale when she saw him. His presence seemed like a cruel reminder of everything she could lose. Daniel noticed her discomfort and encouraged her. "Ignore him for now. This night is about hope. Let's make this work." However, the festive mood was interrupted when a short circuit caused all the lights in the hall to go out. For a few moments, chaos took over. The children started to cry, and Maya ran to calm everyone down. Daniel, with his emergency experience, used his flashlight to organize things. Despite the setback, the music resumed and the event continued. But the donations, though generous, were still far from reaching the required amount. When the night was about to end, Maya took the stage to give thanks. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I know that for many here, this shelter has been a place of hope. It was what my mother dreamed of when she created it. No matter what happens, I am grateful for each one of you who believed in this dream. I hope that together we can keep it alive." Suddenly, a hand raised at the back of the room. It was Thomas Green. He approached and said, "I came tonight just to observe, but what I saw reminded me of something important. Sometimes numbers don't tell the whole story. I'll talk to my superior at the bank to negotiate an extension. You deserve a chance to fight for this place. The room exploded with applause and tears. That unexpected gesture renewed everyone's spirits. Despite the partial victory, Maya knew that challenges would still lie ahead. She and Daniel hugged, sharing a moment of relief. But the real turning point came the next day. One of the children at the shelter, who had a special talent for drawing, had made a portrait of Daniel and Maya together, smiling with the words, "Where hope lives." The image went viral on social media, and donations started pouring in from all over the country. The days following the event marked a significant change for Maya and Daniel. The viral spread of the child's drawing brought an unexpected wave of support. People from different cities sent messages, donations, and even offers of volunteering. For the first time in months, Maya felt that the shelter was truly secure. Daniel was also affected. He began to receive praise and thanks from people who identified with his dedication and sacrifices. One message in particular touched him deeply. "You are proof that even in moments of darkness, there are people who make a difference. Thank you for being one of them." These words echoed in his mind, helping him cope with the guilt he had carried since the accident on the bridge. For the first time, he began to believe that his life could be more than regrets and losses. With the funds raised, Maya was finally able to make the necessary repairs to the building. Daniel led the renovations involving the community members. Seeing people working together to save the shelter reignited his faith in the positive impact that small acts can have. In addition, the attention generated by the drawing brought new opportunities. A local company offered to sponsor the shelter, covering part of the operational expenses. In exchange, Maya organized lectures and workshops for the company's employees, where she shared inspiring stories of the people helped by the shelter. However, challenges did not disappear completely. During a meeting with Thomas Green and other bank representatives, Maya faced pressure to sign a contract that would commit part of the shelter's land in exchange for more time to pay the property. Daniel noticed that Maya was hesitant and supported her. "Don't accept something that goes against the purpose of this place," he said. "We fought too hard to get here. Let's not give up now." Maya found the courage to negotiate better terms, and the bank finally agreed to grant a moratorium without compromising the future of the shelter. During a quiet night at the shelter, while watching the children play in the newly renovated yard, Maya and Daniel talked about everything they had faced. "You know, when you first showed up here, I thought you would quit in a week," Maya said, laughing. "And you were wrong," Daniel replied with a smile. "But you helped me too. You made me realize that it's possible to move forward even with scars." Their relationship deepened, but they still faced the question of how to balance their personal lives with the responsibilities at the shelter. Meanwhile, the community around them began to change. More people volunteered to help, and the shelter became a symbol of hope in the midst of the neighborhood's difficulties. Maya, who had once felt alone, now saw the strength of her mother reflected in every person who believed in the shelter's dream. The most awaited moment was finally arriving. The night of the key delivery event for the new shelter, now fully renovated and expanded, was scheduled for next Friday. Maya and Daniel were exhausted but full of emotion. The future seemed bright, and the fight they had faced was beginning to bear fruit. However, an unexpected twist was about to change everything. A few days before the big delivery, Maya received a call. It was Thomas Green. He had unexpected news. "Maya," he said with a deep voice, "the bank has decided we can no longer delay the payment. The deadline is now. The amount you raised is not enough." Maya felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. What seemed like a victory was about to turn into a tragedy. "But we have done everything we could," she replied, her voice breaking. "Please, it can't be like this." Daniel, hearing the phone, already knew what was happening. He knew how much Maya had dedicated herself, how much they had invested emotionally and physically in this project. He held her hand tightly and looked her in the eyes. "We will fight. We won't give up. We've been through so much, Maya. We can't let this break us." But time was against them. Maya and Daniel tried to contact other investors, but the answers were vague and the banks wouldn't allow negotiations. The final deadline was quickly approaching, and as the hours passed, the fear of losing everything became unbearable. On the eve of the big event, Maya was at the shelter alone. The soft light of the night illuminated the hall that, once empty and lifeless, was now filled with children, smiles, and hope. She sat in one of the chairs, her head in her hands. "I've done everything I could," she thought, feeling defeated. At that moment, Daniel entered with a determined look. He had something in mind. "I'm going to the bank. I will fight for this place. I know we have a chance." Maya looked at him, confused but trusted him. "You're going alone?" "No. Together we will go to the end. We will show the bank that this shelter is not just a building. It's a home, and that is priceless." The two went to the bank the next day, desperate but still with one last spark of hope. When they arrived, Thomas Green greeted them unexpectedly. "You're here again. I understand how much this means to you, but..." Before he could finish the sentence, a gray-haired man, an investor Maya had never seen, approached. He had heard about the shelter through a local news story and was impressed by Maya and Daniel's determination. "I can help. I don't want you to lose what you've built." The conversation was intense, but in the end, the investor made a proposal that Maya and Daniel couldn't believe. He offered to cover the remaining bank debt, ensuring the shelter's safety and its future operation. Thomas, seeing the situation, finally gave in and accepted the new terms. With the relief of knowing the shelter was safe, Maya and Daniel returned to the event. That night, which had started full of fear and uncertainties, was now a celebration of overcoming. The shelter was safe, but more than that, they had shown everyone that when hope seems lost, there is always a chance to start over. The children played in the yard, the sound of laughter filled the air, and Maya and Daniel, hand in hand, looked to the future with a smile of fulfillment. The shelter, once a fight for survival, was now a symbol of resilience. The key delivery event took place on a cold night, but the warmth of the people present made the temperature almost irrelevant. The shelter was now a thriving and safe place, with more space for the children and a dedicated team offering support and education. Maya was there in the center of the yard, surrounded by smiling faces of volunteers, staff, and of course the children she had helped rescue from the streets. She looked at Daniel, who was by her side, his arm wrapped around hers, and felt the weight of the entire journey they had faced together. The pain, the tears, the sleepless nights, it all now seemed like part of a story she knew was worth telling. I never imagined we'd be here, Daniel. Not in this moment. But everything we went through, all the difficulties brought us here. Daniel smiled, still looking at the children. I know, Maya. Look at them. They are the reason we're here. This place is more than just a shelter. It's a symbol that we can always fight for a new chance. The crowd applauded as Maya climbed onto the makeshift stage, ready to give a speech. She looked at the audience with teary eyes but a firm voice. This shelter is not just mine or Daniel's or the sponsors. It's all of yours. All of you who believed, who gave your time, your love, your hope. When we started, it seemed impossible. Today, it's no longer. The shelter is safe, and what we can give these children is a future full of opportunities. The applause was warm, and a wave of emotion swept through the crowd. Life in the shelter would never be the same, but more importantly, the community had transformed. Everyone there was now united for a common cause, to ensure that what had been conquered would not just be preserved, but amplified. Maya and Daniel continued working together to expand the project. The shelter's success inspired other initiatives in neighboring areas. More shelters began to emerge, all following Maya and Daniel's example of dedication, resistance, and hope. The community they had built was stronger than ever, and soon the neighborhood where the shelter was located became a model of social renewal. Maya, now in an influential position, began speaking at community events, becoming a recognized leader in the fight for more resources for vulnerable children. She used the visibility that the shelter generated to pressure authorities to invest more in the education and well-being of at-risk children. Daniel also stood out as an advocate for the cause, working to bring more people into the shelter's mission and ensuring its long-term sustainability. Their bond was strengthened by this shared mission. They became more than friends or partners. They were an unbeatable force, determined to change the lives of the children who had once been forgotten. They had not only given a home to these young people, but also given them something even more precious: hope. Several years passed since that crucial day. Maya and Daniel were now alongside new generations of leaders, continuing the work they had started. The shelter, transformed into a community center, still housed children but also served as a learning space where young people could find psychological support, education, and guidance for the future. Maya and Daniel got married in a simple ceremony, surrounded by the same community that helped them grow. They didn't need great wealth, but what they had already gained: a legacy of transformation, love, and solidarity. "This is not the end, Maya. It's just the beginning," said Daniel, looking toward the future. "We have much more to do." They knew that, with or without difficulties, they were ready for whatever came. The shelter and the community they had created would not just reflect what they had overcome, but also what they could achieve when hope was their guide. And so, with the sunlight illuminating the horizon, Maya and Daniel walked together, side by side, toward a bright future, knowing that the true victory was not in never falling, but in always rising.